All right, everybody, welcome back to Matty Moolah. Appreciate it's been a while since I made a video, but it's going to be an exciting week with respect to earnings. Palantir, Rocket Lab, Celsius, and I think there's a third one in there, Dutch Bros as well, fourth one actually. So it's going to be a very busy week. This one in particular for this video, I'm going to talk a little bit through Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab is one of my favorite high conviction stocks right now. If you were to say in terms of actual cost basis where this stands, it's actually just behind Palantir in terms of cost basis. Actually, it might actually exceed Palantir in terms of cost basis. For an individual stock perspective, I think this is the most in terms of cost basis that I've ever invested in a company. So I think it's upwards of $60,000. I've lost track of how many shares. It's north of 13 because I know I had a 13,000 share mile point, but I've been buying 100 shares here, 100 shares there for a couple weeks now. So anyway, I just want to touch a little bit about what I think earnings will look like. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see. And in the background here, I'm just going to share the fourth quarter. Actually, this is the third quarter earnings, basically looking at the initial kind of flight manifest that they had put out. And so they initially stated that they were going to do 5 launches, coupling with some reusability and everything like that in the third quarter of last year. Then they came out and actually did a financial outlook in February for the fiscal year 2023 earnings, and stated about a $92 to $98 million revenue range, which is about, I would say, $15 to $20 million more than the second highest that they will have ever had. I know they've hit the 70 million mark before, so I think it was closer to 70 or 78 million. If I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and double check that. So this is hitting 92 to 98 million. So that's going to be $15 to $20 million more than that previous all-time high in terms of quarterly revenue. So they did state that they will have 4 launches, anywhere between 32 to 33 million. So checkmate on that, because I think if you actually go look, we did 4 of a kind in January. On closer inspection, we did in February. All Night Long was in March, and then same thing with Live and Let Fly a couple weeks after that one. So with respect to that, I think that we should be on target for the 90 billion plus quarter. What I haven't really heard from the company is really how the Global Star contract is going, because I know a lot of the revenues were supposed to start to come in the first quarter of 2024, and I haven't really heard much about that. So my fingers crossed with respect to that. Other things that I really think will potentially be out of sorts and really what I'm looking for in the quarter, I think a lot of these gap margins are probably going to be in line personally, just because the company's been tracking in the right direction. And I think there's actually a really good slide here actually that shows that gap gross margin and non-gap gross margin, which you can see in the blue and the gray lines respectively, coupled with their percentage points over the past 4 quarters, have kind of gone from the mid low and teens in terms of gap gross margin to the low to mid 20s in terms of gap gross margin, and then follow that with the non-gap gross margin of the high teens to low 30s, sometimes the low to high 20s. So that kind of removing share-based compensation and some of these other items actually showing that we're trending in the right direction. And now that we're starting to get more and more of these Electron firings off, they're hoping to get closer to 50% gap gross margin with reusability and stuff of the like. So hopefully we'll start to continue to climb into that mid-30s for non-gap and closer to the 20s for gap. So the mid-20s, I guess, for gap. Yeah, mid to high 20s for gap, potentially even the low 30s for gap gross margins. That's where we're kind of headed towards here. They're stating basically what they have been doing, 29 to 31% for non-gap, and then 24 to 26, so mid-20s for gap. So the thing that I'm going to be looking at most, everybody, just to be blunt, I could talk to you guys about what's on the screen all day long, but I think the thing that we haven't really had a good update about in a few quarters here is what's the cash look like, and not only that, but what's the cash burn look like. So if you guys all recall, they did this transaction basically where they're able to do the convertible debt offering, and then they wrote the capped calls and everything of the like. So they took some of that money, they paid off $100 million long-term debt that was due. It was $100 million due in June, July timeframe. But even still, we had over $300 million before the end of the year last year. If I actually look specifically at how much cash we had $327.9 million closing out the year last year. And then we did this, $350 million offering, in earlier this quarter. So in the first quarter, rather. So, that added a lot to the balance sheet, hopefully. My hope is coupling that with cash burn. We're in the high 500s again. And the hope is if you have the high 500s, you're able to, we're one quarter through the cash burn for this year. I think you're obviously going to have another 75 to 100 million associated with getting Neutron on the pad and launched. And the hope is you can kind of end out this year with still above, 400 to 350 to 400 million dollars with a successful new vehicle. And with that, you can then really focus on what's the next opportunity and continuing to grow the backlog and get those Neutron launches backlogged and focus on launch number 2 and getting it landed on the first try or second try or third try, whatever you need to do. So it gets me kind of thinking, what's really the metrics that we're looking at here? I mean, yes, the look ahead for Q2 in terms of launch would be nice because at the moment, we're really on one launch for the second quarter, and we need a few more to kind of finish out the quarter to kind of meet, the 22 launch this year goal as the manifest that they put out in third quarter of 2023. So it makes me think a little bit with respect to what's the big nuggets here. And my hope is maybe they'll announce, I don't know, but the key things that I'm looking for are cash and cash burn. Is it in the 500s? Hell, I'd love to see in the 600s, but I don't know if that's plausible. But high 500s in terms of cash on hand. I'd like to see the progress of Neutron and maybe some additional dates with respect to Archimedes test firing and stuff that I like with that. There's been some rumblings around, is there a Neutron contract out there? Because there's a lot of people are saying they need to launch something by December or January, February of 2024, 2025, respectively. And really the only vehicle that's available would be the Neutron at that sort of range. So, how does that look? Is that actually going to happen? And then thirdly, just seeing if we're actually going to meet that manifest. I think that's still a tall order, going from 10 launches in 2023 to 22 in 2024. It's a tall ask. But, I've alwaalways been calmed by what Peter says. And I know that they're literally doing rocket science and they're trying to thread a lot of needles, and the space is still growing, right? So it's not like they're trying to acquire a market share of a massive business, opportunity here. It's something that while Rocket Lab is growing, the industry itself is growing. There's going to be a lot of supply chain issues. There's a lot of things associated with what's going on in the industry as it continues to grow. And Rocket Lab will continue to grow with it. And my hope is they continue to be the second most reliable launch provider in the United States and continue to launch at a higher cadence than, say, China, India, Russia, some of these other auxiliary countries that are also in this space race. And if they can continue to maintain that and continue to collaborate with great partners like SpaceX, NASA, Black Sky, all these folks that they've already been in collaboration with, then we'll continue to succeed. And I continue to see more and more people signing up for further launches. I'm really excited about the NASA pre-fire launch, etc. So we're starting to deviate a little bit more away from kind of what's going on in fourth quarter, but I'm just really excited to see how we continue to progress down that. So anyway, I don't think anything too crazy with respect to the revenue or anything like that. Where I'm really looking is cash burn. Hopefully some nuggets from Peter and the friends about really what's going on with Neutron and pace of that. And then really, what future milestones we can expect. So I think it'll be a good one, right? We haven't really had a very concrete discussion about what cash on hand looked like. And so having that outlook as to how cash looks at the end of the first quarter, with all these transactions, with the convertible debt offering and everything like that, will be very useful to kind of plant ourselves and go forward with, because it's done and dusted. All we can do now is look to the future. So anyway, glad to be able to chat with you guys. A little quick 10-minute video for you guys. Hopefully that one was well received. And I'm going to make another one, I think, about Palantir really quick as well. So hope you guys enjoy. Have a good night. Cheers.